Welcome back, lads, ladies, and other False Nine Show listeners. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have an absolute bummer of a topic, which is the statement released by Gregg Berhalter yesterday and the updated news coming out of ESPN, who are following the story closely, claiming that sources are indicating that it was Claudio Reyna's camp and the Reyna family who were threatening the Berhalters with this blackmail situation. For those of you who aren't following the situation closely, Gregg Berhalter released a tweet yesterday that issued a statement regarding a situation that happened 30 years ago between he and his now wife, who was at the time his girlfriend. And I'm going to read sections of that statement to you today that I think kind of sums the whole thing up, wraps it up with, trimming some of the fat, if you will. And if you want it, you can find this statement very easily on your own and read it for yourself. While we obviously would have wanted to advance further in the World Cup, I am very proud of and grateful for all our players, our staff, everyone at US Soccer, and all of the US national team fans worldwide who supported us. He says a few things. I am looking forward to continuing my conversations with US Soccer about the future, but now is the time for me to publicly share some personal information which a third party has used against my family and me. During the World Cup, an individual contacted US Soccer saying that they had information about me that would take me down, quote unquote, an apparent effort to leverage something very personal from long ago to bring about the end of my relationship with US Soccer. This is a difficult step to take, but my wife Rosalind and I want to clearly and directly share the truth. This is a story that belongs to us, but hopefully there are lessons from our relationship that can be valuable to others. In the fall of 1991, I met my soulmate. I had just turned 18 and was a freshman in college when I met Rosalind for the first time. There was a familiar feeling when we spoke. Rosalind was and is an amazing person, and we connected immediately. It felt like we had known each other for years. We had been dating for 4 months when an incident happened between us that would shape the future of our relationship. One night, while out drinking at a local bar, Rosalind and I had a heated argument that continued outside. It became physical, and I kicked her in the legs. There are zero excuses for my actions that night. It was a shameful moment and one that I regret to this day. At that time, I immediately apologized to Rosalind, but understandably, she wanted nothing to do with me. I told my parents, family, and friends what happened because I wanted to take full responsibility for my behavior. Rosalind also informed her parents, family, and friends. While the authorities were never involved in this matter, I voluntarily sought out counseling to help learn, grow, and improve. One of the most valuable decisions that I ever made. To this day, that type of behavior has never been repeated. I feared that I lost my soulmate, and then out of the blue, 7 months later, I received a call from Rosalind asking if we could speak in person. We met and discussed how we had grown and decided to rebuild our relationship. Rosalind shared that her family supported this decision, and by working through what had happened, we both realized that our love, trust, and respect for each other was stronger than the incident that occurred months earlier. Since then, Rosalind and I have lived together in 5 different countries, 3 different states, and have met and remained friends with many wonderful people from all around the world. The lessons learned from that night over 3 decades ago became the foundation for a loving, devoted, and supportive relationship, which we honored and celebrated with our 25th wedding anniversary this past weekend. I'm sharing this story after 31 years because it's important to understand it was an event that shaped me but doesn't define me. It was a single, isolated event over 3 decades ago and a terrible decision made in a bad moment by an 18-year-old. Rosalind and I have been on an amazing journey together. We have raised 4 wonderful children who are aware of what happened. We are very proud of our marriage, our relationship, the family we have built, and the people we have become. He talks about emphasizing accountability, honesty, growth. It's how he lives his life, and he wants to instill that in the team. Thankfully, Rosalind forgave him. People can make mistakes and learn from them, and people can be forgiven for their mistakes, and Rosalind, luckily, forgave him. The intention of the statement is to provide transparency and to reinforce that a single bad decision made by a teenager does not necessarily define him for the rest of his life. We will not hide from this. We didn't then, and we won't now. I think that's a very important point. This is our story. We have fully cooperated with the US Soccer investigation into this matter, and while we would prefer not to speak about something so personal from long ago in such a public forum, we are embracing this opportunity to share what has shaped us and how much we have grown and learned from over this past 31 years. Thank you, Rosalind and Gregg Berhalter. Following up on this, a few hours ago, ESPN released an article saying that they had sources that indicated that Claudio Reyna and the Reyna family were the ones who were holding this blackmail. They were the ones who sent the message to USSF. Now, first things first, we don't know anything for certain. Everything at this point is he said, she said. We can assume that Berhalter's account of the story is at least accurate, that at some point 31 years ago he was under the influence of alcohol, 18 years old, lost his temper, reacted extremely inappropriately and in an unacceptable manner, and kicked who was at then time his girlfriend and is now his wife of 30 years. There are multiple different indications that it is the Reynas who are involved, who are holding this story above Gregg Berhalter's head. Not only have the two families been longtime close friends, but Rosalind Berhalter and Danielle Egan, who is Claudio Reyna's wife, Gio Reyna's mother, were roommates at UNC in the early stages of college, so they know each other very well. The two fathers, Berhalter and Claudio Reyna, know each other very well. These are families that have been friends for 30 years as families. Their kids have grown up together, they have gone on vacation together, they know each other extremely well. And that is what really indicates some truth to these sources, that it is the Reynas who held this, as well as there being a motive because of their son Gio being told he wouldn't have that much of a role at the World Cup in Qatar in 2022 for the US. I mean, who does that to their friends? First of all, who is sitting there benching, sidelining, refusing to play one of the nation's best players in an important position that we need depth, that we need coverage in, who is also the son of one of your good friends? I can understand being accused of nepotism as a fear, but come on, man. Everyone was crying out for Reyna to get playing time, and then further on that, for the Reynas to then go and blackmail Berhalter, someone who's been a family friend for an incredibly long time. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely crazy. This is like some preschool childhood soccer team BS right here. Are we becoming France? All jokes aside, this is a really serious situation, and I think that there's a lot of things that we need to talk about in terms of the way women are treated in these sorts of situations and the way women are treated in the realm of sports and scandals in general. Now, I didn't feel comfortable giving information on this, talking about this, without at first consulting an unbiased woman who actually can talk about domestic violence and what it's like to be a woman in these sorts of situations, what it's like to go through this experience, to have that fear in a way that men just never will understand. Yes, men experience domestic violence. No, it's not anything or in the same vein in terms of systemic as women experience it. And so that's why I felt it was important to talk to female friends of mine to hear what they had. And they brought up some really important points. Number one is that we haven't heard anything from the actual victim of domestic violence in this situation whatsoever. We haven't heard anything from Rosalind. And I think that is extremely important because I don't think that they are necessarily intentionally silencing her, but it is happening nonetheless. We haven't heard any update from the actual woman or any words from the woman who was abused in this situation. That's messed up, and that needs to change. Now, I can understand if for wanting to avoid publicity and drama, she doesn't want to give a public statement. I can understand that. I can understand if she doesn't want to share her story because she doesn't want to deal with the negative repercussions of modern toxicity on the internet. I understand if that is a case, but I do think she is a public figure. People know who she is. A small sentence, something along the lines of, I don't want to bring any attention to myself, so I don't want to comment on the situation. I want to detach myself from the situation any further, but I support my husband. That's all that it takes. That's all that we need to hear. For, I think, societal reasons, we haven't heard that. I think because society just pegs this as Gregg Berhalter versus Claudio Reyna or Gregg Berhalter versus the blackmailer. We haven't heard from Rosalind, which is who should be front and center. She should be the person being supported and uplifted the most in this regard. Now that point right there that I just said was something, it's not my own original idea. It was given to me by other women who I reached out to talk to about this. And I consider myself a feminist. I consider myself a man who speaks on behalf of women when no other men will. This isn't something that I had on my mind. This wasn't something, I'm still learning too, guys. Like, I'm still figuring this stuff out as I go along too. I am still changing and growing and adapting too, and we all need to be willing to accept that we are perpetuating, we are working in a system that silences victims, that silences women, and we need to actively work against that. Gregg is not the victim here, Rosalind is. Now, don't get me wrong, I have gained a different sort of respect for Gregg Berhalter and the way that he has handled this. Do I think he is defined by his mistakes? No. I don't think that he is a horrible person for making a dumb mistake years ago, potentially under the influence of alcohol as a teenager. No, he shouldn't pay for those sins for the rest of his life. However, none of those factors are excuses, and I'm seeing a lot of people online and in the US men's community talking about how being drunk or being 18 are reasons that we should forgive him, that everyone makes mistakes. And while yes, these factors add context, they aren't excuses. This behavior is unacceptable. You should know once you are age 10 that lashing out in violence is never the answer, that is never acceptable, that it is always unacceptable. You should know that after age 10. Being 18 is not an excuse. Being drunk is not an excuse. Being angry is not an excuse. And that behavior cannot be excused. Well, I'm not seeing that so much from Gregg Berhalter himself, more so from the other people reacting to this. And that's where my main issue with this is the way the fandom and the way people are reacting to this problem is really gross, and it's apologetic towards domestic violence rather than taking accountability to prevent actions from like this, behavior like this, from happening in the future. Mostly my issue with the situation isn't anything to do with Berhalter himself. He made a mistake, and it seems, if everything he is saying is to be believed, he's taken accountability and atoned for those sins with his wife, and they have moved on and have had 25 years of happy marriage. It seems like that is the truth, and I'm the optimist in me, the open-heartedness in me wants to believe that. I really, really do. My issue is more with the way people are excusing his behavior, is with the fact that there hasn't been any sort of indication or any hearing from Rosalind, from the woman. It is Berhalter who is being placed front and center, and I don't think that he is intentionally doing this, but whether he is intentionally or subconsciously doing this, he needs to take steps to fix that. And it's just another way in which society is failing women, in which men in society, men in powerful positions, are letting women down. I'm no expert on any of this by any regard, but that doesn't stop me from having an opinion. And what I think Berhalter should do in order to really truly take accountability is take actions to prevent domestic violence in any form, whether it is a small kick on the shins or truly violent, horrible, malicious acts. He needs to take action to prevent these sort of behaviors from happening in the future. And I think if he were to come out and organize some sort of counseling method or launch or be launch or be a part of a campaign that encourages young men to get into counseling for anger management or about the different ways in which women are marginalized and mistreated in society, I think that would make a big difference for my perception of Berhalter. And really, that's what I think he should do and has the responsibility to do as a public figure who has been in this situation before and it is now open to the public. He has that responsibility to educate others, to make an impact on others, so that they can hopefully prevent this from happening in the future. Now, like I said, I don't want to hold all this weight and blame over Berhalter. He isn't some villain or some bad guy, or at least that is not my interpretation of him as a character. I think that he is a leader, that he offers role model and leadership capabilities, and I think because of that, he has the responsibility to stand up and do the right thing here. People are looking up to him. People are looking at him. The spotlight is on him, and he needs to do the right thing here. It's just my personal opinion that getting involved in preventing domestic violence from happening in the future is his responsibility now. It's something he really needs to shoulder. There's an old quote that I like that I think really applies here. We are not responsible for the things that happen to us, but we are responsible for how we respond to the things that happen to us. And for me, he really needs to respond in a leader way, in the way that a role model should. That's going to wrap this video up, guys. Thank you so much for joining. I know it's a really bummer of a topic, but it's something that's important to talk about. I do want to talk about Gio Reyna and his future. I wanted to leave that out of this video. I felt like the weight of this video, the topic of toxic masculinity, the reverence and the way that we talk about Rosalind and the way that we talk about Gregg Berhalter and domestic violence needed to be its own separate video. So I do want to talk about Gio Reyna and what this means for his future, both as a club player and with the U.S. men's national team, but I felt it was disrespectful to include it in this video. So please let me know what you guys are thinking down below. Let me know your thoughts, everything, even if you disagree, agree violently, or even a little bit, whatever it is, slightly, extremely, however you feel, please let me know in the comments down below. Your voice is important, your opinion is important, and I want to hear about it. And if you like this video and the way that we talk, and you're interested in this Gio Reyna video coming out later this week, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channels out, guys. And thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.